for me, the main fear that I had throughout this trip was leading someone to Christ. Because we got all the information for it, but I wasn't, comfortable. I thought I was going to say the wrong words. But he ended up helping me, not during the trip. I didn't get an opportunity during the trip, but the week after I went to camp and I was a counselor, and he gave me the words to say, because I was comfortable with saying it whenever I got the opportunity to lead 2 children to Christ.
One fear I had about going on the trip was going out and talking to people, whether we were sharing the gospel or inviting people. And on Wednesday we had went to the pool, the community pool in Tennessee, in Kingsport, and we were inviting them for this party that we were having at a church. It was Providence Church, and just watching some of the other people from my group going and inviting people to this party just really showed me not to be afraid and to just go out there and have fun with it.
A fear I had going on to the trip was not knowing what to say and just saying something wrong, not giving the right answer. But I was reminded in Exodus 3 and 4 how God called Moses to go and let his people go, and he told God that he couldn't because he was a slow speaker, and God told him that he will be with him.
I think my biggest fear prior to this trip was not exactly knowing what to look for or exactly what we would be dealing with, and I think God helped me overcome those fears by with all the people there, and I just think everything went a lot smoother than I thought it would.
Going into this trip, I had a fear of speaking to people and just praying with them. But when we went to the senior center, I got to go with Christy, and we walked around and talked to a lady named Betty Lou. And we talked to her for about an hour. And when we were finished, I asked if I could pray for her, and she said yeah. And when I finished praying, I expected to just leave, but she actually asked if she could pray for us as well. And that was a really cool experience.
My biggest fear about the trip was not knowing what we're going to be doing, but I prayed about it for a really long time, and when it got closer to the trip, I had no more fears. I was just completely excited and ready to go and just overjoyed to go.
I didn't really have any fears. I went in blind, and God just kind of worked with me throughout the whole trip.
It was really cool during the trip to see how God was working with people, because you'd see people who at home they're not comfortable with talking to random strangers, or they're not comfortable praying, and then when asked to pray or given the opportunity, they're the first ones to say something, or they're out just engaging people and being intentional with it, and yeah.
Okay, so I saw God working so many ways on this trip, and for me, just whenever we were worshiping, I wasn't afraid to really put my arms out there and reach to God and put my arms up and just scream, whether how bad my voice is, or it just didn't matter. Nobody cared, nobody judged you, and for others, I just noticed them too. You could tell that they weren't afraid, and they knew that God was with them wherever they went.
A way that I seen God working was whenever we went to the nursing home, we bought a couple of gifts for some of the people there, and we went to this one room and gave this one girl a coloring book, and her roommate, which was sleeping most of the time, started to wake up, and she asked for a coloring book, and we're like, what do we do, because we didn't have another one. And Marilyn, the girl that we gave the coloring book to, told us to reach in her bag, and we did. And we pulled out one of her old coloring books, and she told us to give it to her, and we did. And she just had the biggest smile ever. And just the little things like giving a coloring book to somebody and seeing them give to somebody else is just cool.
I saw God work through this trip when one of the leaders, Jonathan, he had to go to the hospital to help someone out, and Biagio, the other leader, he stepped in without even having a lesson plan or anything, and he just gave this powerful message. And then right after that, we had our feet washing, and it was just a powerful night. That's all it was.
On this trip, I got to see God working in a lot of ways. One way was that, like, seeing other teenagers just praying for each other and praying for other people was a really cool experience. And just listening to people at the senior center, they were filled with joy whenever we would just listen to their stories. And another way was whenever we were at the homeless shelter, we were painting, and people would just ask us, like, why are we here and why are we doing this? And we got to tell them that we were on a mission trip and that we just wanted to share the love of Christ with them.
Ways I saw God working on the trip was speaking through people. My friend asked me to pray for her, and I wasn't really sure what to say, and he just spoke through me. And when we went to the nursing home, he also spoke through me there and other people throughout the whole entire trip.
Oh goodness, God worked with everybody, and I've seen that. I've never ever seen so many young adults and teenagers worship so powerfully in 1 week, and just in a few days. It was just simply amazing, and it's just indescribable.
The thing that I thought that impacted me the most was during the evenings, whenever we had worship and the debrief and the lesson in the evenings. It was like really cool because each day God was bringing something new to the table and challenging us in, like, the one day the leaders had to wash our feet, and it wasn't just a challenge for them, but it was a challenge for us because we had to set aside our pride and be able to let them do that. And then with the worship, it was just amazing because you felt his presence everywhere, and everywhere you looked, you saw people shouting out to God in praise or just prayer, and it was just one of those amazing things.
What impacted me the most about this trip would probably be Philippians 2. While we were there, we studied verses 1 through 15, and each day we would go by and try to study and remember 3 verses each day. And 2 verses that really stuck with me were do everything out of selfish ambition or vain conceit. And what that means is put others before yourselves, and don't think of yourself. Always try to do something for others before you do for yourself. And the other one is do everything without complaining or arguing. And every time my mom or dad asks me to do something now, before saying no or walking away or something, I always think of that, and it really helps me out when I'm at home now.
Something that impacted me most from the trip was probably in our devotions. We were encouraged to study Philippians 2, and whenever I got to verse 3 and 4, it says, "Do nothing from selfish ambition or conceit, but in humility count others more significant than yourself. Let each of you look not only to his own interest, but also to the interest of others." And that means to me that you should put others higher than yourself and care about them before you do yourself.
I think what impacted me the most was the worship. I just think that it was so powerful, and that would impact me the most.
Something that impacted me most from this trip was the fact that 3 different groups of teenagers we're able to come from 3 different states and become one through Christ and be able to share the love of Christ together. And I think it was really cool because we were hit with challenges and some sickness throughout the week, but we were able to battle Satan and tell him that we were stronger.
What impacted me most on the trip was going to the nursing home and talking to the people, even though they knew we couldn't understand them. They were just really happy to have someone to talk to. Me and Monica prayed for this one lady, and afterwards she prayed for us, and it was just so amazing, and it really, really impacted me.
The way that God came into my life, and when we were all worshiping, it was just simply amazing, and God really impacted me that one specific night whenever everyone was just still for Him.
The main way that God challenged me on this trip was to just let people in and to let them see who I really am, because I'm one of those people who hides away their emotions and doesn't let people see that side of me. And he really challenged me to be comfortable with people and to let them know what's wrong and what's going on in my life.
God challenged me on this trip many ways, but one that is really sticking with me is doing devotions every day and sticking with reading. One thing I've been going back to is Philippians 2, and just going back and doing devotions every day just makes me think about the trip and about how much it was. And another thing I'd like to do as I come back is reaching out to the community and to keep that repetition.
A way that God challenged me on the trip was whenever we were at Hope Haven, a homeless shelter, we were painting, and I just was really tired, going up and down on the same wall, and I just wanted to give up, and I just went downstairs for a little break and went back upstairs, and my paintbrush was gone, so I had to use an even smaller one, and pretty much all the walls were done. So I went outside to help Josh and Monica in the shed, and it was a lot hotter and more tiring. So I just decided that I'm doing this for the Lord, and that I just was not going to give up.
I think God challenged me whenever we went to the senior center, how at first I was kind of intimidated with all the people there. I didn't really want to talk to them. Some kind of looked scary, and I just didn't really want to talk to them. But at the end of the week, I was alright with it, so I think I was challenged.
God really challenged me on this trip with learning Philippians 2 verses 1 through 15. I didn't really want to do it at first because I thought that it was too hard, but as the week went on, I kept learning the verses, and the verses really became more powerful to me.
God challenged me on this trip to get out of my comfort zone by talking to people and praying with people. I was asked to pray one day at the beginning of the trip, and I was like, not really. And then a couple days later, I was asked to share my testimony in front of 50 or 60 people, and I did it, and really got me out of my comfort zone.
To really break loose with my past, and he really challenged me to break my chains, and it did work. God is incredible.
The main thing that I learned about myself and my relationship is that I have to give it to him, and when I give it to him, I have to know that he loves me and he's going to care for me no matter what, and that once I give it to him, it's his, and it's covered by his blood, and I can feel free in knowing that I am saved by him.
what I learned about myself through Christ on this trip was that I can make a difference going to wherever I go. The day that we went to the pool, I got the chance to hang out with some little kids at the pool and just to see like the smile that I brought on their face, and I know that they won't forget it, and it just brought me joy, like just to see that they were happy. And through mine and God's relationship, it's really grown that week on the trip. I realized that not only that I can make a difference, but that everybody can make a difference.
On the trip, I learned that my relationship with Christ needed to be Him first and not me.
I think one thing I learned about myself on this trip was how much I liked getting up, doing the Devo. I like the rhythm. I like how much value it puts in your life, and how important it is to start your day out with reading the Bible. So that's one thing I enjoyed.
I really learned about myself that I can share my faith and that I can pray with others even though I feel like I can't or that I'm not good enough.
Before the trip, my relationship with Christ wasn't where it was exactly supposed to be, and this trip definitely changed it and made it where it's supposed to be, and I see Him in my life daily now, working through everything, and it's just completely amazing, and I'm glad that I'm where I'm at right now.
I learned that God has some pretty big plans for my life, and Satan can get mad.